Hi, I'm Nick Smith with Smith Ford Strength and Conditioning, and this is part 3 of 3 of a glute activation protocol that I like to implement for my patients. I have Corey Salas here, and we're going to go through the third exercise, what we call fire hydrants. So the starting position that we want to get into is what we call quadruped, or hands and knees. So I'm going to have Corey hop up onto his hands and knees. Now, before we get started on this is a kind of a position in itself that can get kind of tricky. So something to be mindful of just for a basic setup before you even start or implement this exercise is where your positioning is. Now this seems pretty standard, like, oh, pop up on my hands and knees, easy, right? But there's some certain things we want to look for to make sure that we're not putting our back or any other of our joints in a compromised position. So I could go into a very, very long discussion into all the different things that we need to look for in this position, but I'm going to give you just a basic framework to try to keep you as safe as possible. So the first thing we want to start with is basically where our contact points are. So our contact points are obviously our feet, our knees, and our hands. So when correcting where we start off is we want to make sure that our knees are about hips width apart and our hands are about shoulder widths apart. That's just a general framework. And what you should notice is you create like a box underneath you. Then we want to make sure that our feet are kind of in a good position as well, directly behind the knees in a straight position. So these are our 6 points of contact. Now, let's start with the back. So I'm going to work from the head down to kind of give you a good checklist for yourself before you even start this exercise. Okay? So we're going to start off with the neck. Now, common things I see with the head position are either you have something that's kind of just lazy, just kind of buried, or they want to look at the wall and it's too far up. So the key here is kind of neutral. So I always say eyes down. By doing this, you're going to allow the proper amount of activation of your deep neck flexor muscles, which is actually part of your core. So Corey's in a good position right now. He's good. Check that one off the list. Next thing we want to get into is in the shoulder position. So in your actual shoulders, what you want to actually be activating is your serratus anterior muscle. And those muscles attach to your ribs. And what that allows you to do is to get your shoulder blades, your scapulus, locked onto your trunk. So this is kind of like the core of your arms. So what I'm going to tell Corey to do is pretend like he is doing a push-up, but at the very end of the push-up, do what we call a push-up plus. So just push a little bit extra. So this is great. This is nice and flat. So we can check this off. Now Corey's in a position that's going to make him very tired. And at some point he's going to have to take a break. So I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. So if you notice, as soon as he pushed up with his arms, this part of his back started to come up. So we want to try to keep this as flat as possible. So he's trying to support himself here with this other part of his back. So what I'm going to tell him to do is drop his chest down. Good. By doing that, he's put himself in a nice neutral position without losing that activation of his serratus muscles. So he's in a good position right here. As we work down towards the pelvis and towards the hips, we want to make sure that our pelvis is in a nice neutral position. So we don't want too much anterior tilt where he's kind of sticking his butt out, and we don't want too much posterior tilt where he's kind of rocked backwards. So we want somewhere right in the middle. So I can feel that his abdominals are engaging and he's in a nice flat position. So from here, I would say, okay, Corey is ready to do his exercise. So these are called fire hydrants, as I had mentioned before. So the position that he's actually going to be doing, I'm going to come around here, we're going to be working this same side glute muscle. So what he's going to do is going to have to stabilize himself so he doesn't fall, and he's actually going to lift his knee to the side and backwards. And so something to be mindful of is how much rotation actually occurs at the back. We want to isolate here, but unfortunately, we're going to be recruiting a lot of our muscles of our back as well. So Corey's actually doing a good job. He's stabilizing well. He's not rotating very much, and I'm sure he's starting to feel that quite nicely. So in this position, same rules apply as before. If he can hold it for a minute, he can progress. And Corey, you can go ahead and relax. You can go ahead and relax, bud. So for any of these exercises I've given you from series 1 through 3, these can all be added with various, TheraBand or other resistance things. So if you want to, say you're not quite ready for the new exercise, or you want to just stick with one, you can do this exercise and add resistance to it, still implementing that 1 minute rule. So if, like I said before in previous videos, if you can't hold it for a minute straight, hold it for a minute's worth of actual time. So for Corey's sake, if he can hold it for 15 seconds apiece, he's going to do 4 sets of 15 seconds until he can work towards that 1 minute and he can progress further. So this is the end of the short series. If there's anything that you guys want to see or any common pain problems that you guys have had in the past, feel free to comment in the link below. Let me know if there's anything you guys want to see, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.